Welcome, gods and goddesses, creators, to All Things Spirituality with yours truly, Maria Palomino, a sacred sanctuary that speaks the unspeakable and lets you in on the secrets of spiritual awakening. Introducing self-discovery, soul awakening tools that helps you remember your soul's true purpose to start manifesting a conscious reality. Every soul is unique, meaning no spiritual path is the same. Feel every conversation and let your mind, body, and soul guide you to what is unique to only you. It is the soul's resonance of remembrance. Now, take a deep breath, drop into your heart, and let us begin, beautiful souls creators. Welcome, gods and goddesses creator. Today we have Malaika, who's going to be talking to us about wild woman embodiment through many of the programs that she offers, like 5 Elements Dance, Shakti Awakening, and her Wild Woman Retreats. Let me read a little bit about her bio. This woman is phenomenal. I call her Mama Gaia, Mama Bali. She's an elemental yoga, African dance, cacao ceremony, a global movement facilitator with shamanic, tantric earth goddess roots. Malaika is a Canadian-Jamaican ancestry who spent years living amongst different indigenous cultures from Africa and Australia to South America. Malaika brings a wealth of earth wisdom of personal and planetary awakening, having walked the shamanic path for a lifetime, dedicated to creating sacred space in ritual and ceremony, embodying ancient wisdom, and creating relevant ceremonies of our contemporary people to help restore balance. Malaika has been dancing and practicing yoga for over 18 years. She combines her background in elemental shamanic earth wisdom, Ishta yoga, tantra, and Ayurveda, 5 elements with her love of African rhythm to provide her students with tools for joy, self-transformation, and awakening. Malaika has regularly taught private and group classes in Australia, Bali, Canada, Hawaii, and Sri Lanka. Her teaching style is unique and encourages full body awareness, builds core strength, cultivating grace and beauty to overflow into one's life while bringing the individual deeper insight to a still point of inner contentment and connection with the divine. Thank you and welcome, Malaika. Thank you for being here today at All Things Spirituality.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your podcast.
It's my honor. I want to take a few minutes, just a couple minutes, to drop into our heart, to make sure that everything that we are saying, we are stepping out of the ego, and that is content that is going to bring higher consciousness and awareness to all our listeners. So I invite you to bring your heart, your palms to your heart center, and just feeling your breath, feeling how everything's calming down as you bring your palms into praying position where the right and the left side of the hemisphere come into balance. Taking a deep breath, exhale. Take another deep breath, making sure it's deep, 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 coming in from your belly, up your rib cage, and your shoulders down, chest out, and release. And one last breath, make your deepest one. Hold up top. And release. Thank you, Malaika, for being here today. So, first and foremost, I want to share when I met Malaika. I met Malaika in Los Angeles 3 years ago, maybe? At least 4 years ago, at least. Yeah. And one of my girlfriends told me I needed to go to this dance class in LA by a very famous woman, millennial, who is Sarah Rose. And I didn't know who she was or anything. So here's Sarah, who has a very big following. We're in Venice Beach. And she's twerking. She's doing all these moves that... It was fun. It was different, which was nice. And then afterwards, she brings out Malaika and starts doing different type of embodiment dance. And I just feel the shamanic roots right away. And then she had us all lined up, woman to woman, really recognizing each other, coming into grace. And the only time I spoken to her is because we all took a group picture towards the end, and she told me to move to the left. And I think that's about it. And then I found out, it was on a Saturday, I found out that she was going to have a retreat in Turkey that's starting in 2 weeks. So I met her on a Saturday, felt that instant connection to her practice, to the space that she holds, and just a great impact on, I just knew I wanted to learn whatever it is she is embodying. She just has this beautiful presence that every time she holds space, it's like all her guys just come in and there's work being done beyond. And so I met her on a Saturday, found out about the retreat, and by Monday I had booked a flight to go to Turkey to a wild woman retreat with Malaika. I just knew, and I'm very lucky. Like sometimes when you just feel it and you have that calling, you just know you need to follow your gut instinct, and that's exactly what I did. And I'm very grateful I did the right thing. That was a life-changing retreat where I really got to connect with myself, with my womb, and really start knowing, well, what it means to be a wild woman and be connected with myself and with nature. So here we have Malaika today to talk to us, and we're going to talk a little about the history of wild woman, where did that derive from, the traditions, and then she's going to talk about how she goes about helping women embody their true essence, their Shakti that is awakening more and more and becoming very essential every day. So thank you, Malaika. Why don't you start and let all the juicy information out?
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yeah, so I guess, my journey, I was born in Canada, and I'm sure at first I was like, what? I'm white, I'm in a cold country, and and I'm a woman. It was like everything just seemed like, how did this happen? Felt like I was in the wrong place a little bit. And so I spent a lot of time sort of healing a lot of my family trauma, and a lot of that had to do with ancestry. And because we had this mixed race blood from the Jamaican side that was disowned, and we weren't even allowed to say that we were from Jamaica or anything to do with it in being in Canada. Wow. And we were white enough that we could get away with, just pretend you're white and you're Canadian, but
you look mixed.
Yeah, but we did, like limbo in when we'd have family gatherings, we'd be doing the limbo and playing always Harry Belafonte and all this Jamaican music, which was my favorite. And we'd always be going to the Caribbean for holidays, which that's when I fell in love with the tropics and going, now this is where I'm meant to be,
you know. That was home.
Someone please tell those Canadians that the ice age is over in the rest of the world. I was like, I just never, we weren't the family out there making snowmen and things like that. We were heading off to the ocean and heading off to the beach. And that was always like my happy place, in nature. And still, that is my happy place. And she's my greatest teacher. And I feel very blessed that I've been able to travel so far all over the world, meeting so many different people and so many different cultures and learning from so many different cultures. And in the quest of discovering myself and healing this wound of my ancestry, it took me to Africa. It took me to the Aboriginal indigenous people of the Aboriginal cultures in Australia. I lived in Australia for 25 years, and I ended up working in the indigenous schools up in the Northern Territory, where there's still like
25 years in Australia. Wow.
Yeah. And was married to an Australian, and so all the work just naturally unfolded. I think when you live a natural life and you live with your feet close to the earth, it's like all these traditions which are found, from South America to Bali, to Australia, to Africa. It's kind of a human condition. That's what I found.
Okay,
it doesn't matter where you go. Like even yesterday, I was doing a ceremony, just DJing. I would DJ as well, so I was DJing for a party for one of my students, and before I do anything, I always make an offering to the ancestors of the place and call in that protection and the guides. And so, I went down to the river, and one of the Balinese saw me doing that, and they're like, oh, same like us. We always do this like that. And so these common threads, that are found through all of the indigenous cultures.
Of honoring the land.
Yeah, and I think it's been like since the patriarchy, since the Industrial Revolution, we become more and more separated from those traditions. And what's trying to reawaken right now is the feminine, because we've repressed that both in men and in women.
Yes,
in our culturally, as
yes.
Men have suffered just as much from the
Correct.
repression of the feminine,
yes.
As women have. It's just women, it's more physical, like, okay, we got burnt at the stake, we chopped off their heads, it's like, it's more physical, you can see the abuse, but
and we're so scared to speak our truth.
Yes.
To tell our stories. Mm-hmm. Because we've been burned at the stake for speaking up or using our natural intuitive abilities, because we're natural healers.
Yeah, and having these collective memories that are in our human consciousness. But they're also, it doesn't matter whether you're a woman or a man, we all have these, we're going through this collectively. And so we can't, it's like the yin and the yang. You can't have one without the other. You have to have these polarities of the masculine, feminine energies, and those two little dots in the middle of going, and there's a little bit of both in each one.
Yes.
So in every woman there's a man, in every man there's a woman, in every,
divine union.
Yeah, this divine union. And that's really is the sacred union, is this sacred union that's happening within. And so all these cultures that have traditions and rituals that help us as human beings to stay on track and to stay in harmony with the earth, because it's almost like the Western mentality came in thinking that we are somehow separate from the earth, and the European cultures that kind of spread out and colonized North and South America, Australia, they come from this ancient root. If you go back to their ancient roots, like the Celtics, and they also were pagan, worshiping the moon, worshiping the sun. All of our traditional ceremonies that we're celebrating, like Christmas and Easter, they're all taken from ancient pagan traditions, which all had to do with
churches were built upon
sacred sites.
Pagan
sites. So it's, and so that energy that's reawakening now, like women are really feeling it, and they're starting to feel it in their bodies, and because we need to have that balance in order for us to move forward. And so if one has been repressed, then they both need to be brought into alignment so that we move forward as equals. And by equals, I don't mean we're exactly the same. We're not. There's very distinct differences, and that's a good thing.
Biologically, we are different.
Yeah, we have been given the gift of reproducing life within our own bodies, and that's an absolute gift that used to be revered and honored, because all life comes through the female form.
Yes.
And more and more we're losing that. And my work, I just like to bring women into that reverence of their body, that your body is a temple, and all the fruit trees, the fruiting part of any plant in nature is the feminine part. I mean, it is the womb. You open a papaya and, there's all the seeds. It's the womb. So that is the metaphor that is like women. We need to honor that we carry those seeds, whether you choose to have children or birth children or not. We have been given that gift, and we all come through that portal of our mothers.
Even if your ovaries and you have been removed, energetically, etherically, it's still there. You still have that magic and that power to work with your womb. Yeah. Yes.
And men too even have this etheric womb, that they can connect to, which is, when a man is painting and he's lost in the moment with his art, or he's playing the guitar and he's lost in the moment of that's Shakti, life force energy that's moving through him, and why it is so attractive to women when you see men like in that, because they're just in the present moment, and they're allowing that feminine energy to move through them. So, and more we've disassociated ourselves from the earth, which for me, in my own journey and in my own life path, I've seen how people who are separated from that, which we are, it creates depression.
Yes.
And, you can take a pill to try and stop the depression, but all you're doing is numbing out. The real feeling is that you want to feel connected again.
Correct.
You want to feel connected to that which you are. And we can't really separate, like there's a part of ourselves that we cannot separate ourselves from. And there's a part of ourselves that, breathes us, that we have, there's something that breathes us. And so even people that are depressed or, suicidal, but if I was to take them and hold their head underwater, there's something inside of them that would fight against me to come up and take that next breath. So there's something inside of us that is naturally life affirming, naturally going towards life.
Correct.
And for me, that is that Shakti life force energy.
Can you explain what Shakti life force energy? I feel like a lot of the listeners don't know what that means, and the word gets thrown around so much.
Yeah, and
nowadays.
it does. And from my studies in India with my Ayurveda and with yoga, we use these two. They use these two metaphors of Shakti and Shiva. And in our sort of lowest denomination of it, we say that it's, Shakti is woman and Shiva is man, but it's far greater than that. These are two principles of the universe, that, Shiva is the unmanifested and Shakti is the manifested. So anything that's in nature, anything that is alive is Shakti life force energy is moving through that.
Yes.
So it's the principle of the manifested form of the consciousness, and Shiva is the pure consciousness. And so when those two energies come together, that's when birth happens and new life and new creation happens into the manifested form. And so in the Indian pantheon, they use metaphors of, gods and demigods and personify them into human forms. But really, they're talking about energies in this universe. Yeah. And for the
like
little
Isis
human
and Osiris, and then they have Horus.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's
even in Inca.
Yeah, and it's for this small human mind to be able to wrap our brains around these huge, massive concepts of a infinite, vast universe. They personified it to help us to understand how to stay in harmony and how to have a spiritual awakening here in the earth plane. And, in many of those cultures, in fact, all of them that I've lived with and studied with, they all believe that this is just it's one realm. It's not it, And we come here, and I believe that
they all believe in reincarnation.
Yeah, reincarnation and past lives, and
very
we've been
well
here
ingrained.
Many times before. And our, there's that part of our soul that is eternal, and you can't kill that part of the soul. It's like we are eternal beings, and in the Western mind, what the distortion is, this quest to try and make the physical body live forever, so like we've lost the circle of life again.
Correct.
And this is one of the things that I love to teach as well, is the circle of the feminine, with the 13 phases of woman.
I love it. Yes.
And within those phases, it's like
to honor each phase.
Right? Phase. No phase is greater or more valued than the other. But in our male patriarchal dominated culture, we're only honoring the maiden.
Yes, and it's become a little to the point where I think girls that are in junior high, they're getting Botox because they're running away from aging. They don't want to see a single wrinkle.
Yeah.
And instead of just being proud of becoming a woman, and especially in areas where it's metropolitan, especially around the beach, you don't see old people walking around. Mm-hmm. Everyone looks pretty clean, kind of like Hollywood stars. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way that it's been going. And I think it's more about, are you doing it? I feel like technology is great, but you have to find like a medium point. Like, what's the reason behind it? Mm-hmm. And are you also embracing, becoming older? Or are you just embarrassed about it? If there's really an insecurity. I think maybe there's a way of doing both, where maybe you could create a balance where you are getting that type of treatment, but at the same time you're honoring where you are in this phase of life.
And you know, for me, I just always say, like, you know, aging with grace, you know, because it's a beautiful thing, and you can't live a long life without getting older. So that's just as simple as it is. And, you know, in Aboriginal cultures, in the Aboriginals in Australia, there's certain initiations that older women, you only get when you turn 52, when you got your gray hairs.
52.
52 is like, and in many cultures, also in Africa, there was like a secret women's society that only women who had stopped bleeding and were like 52 and had their gray hairs, they were privy to all this women's wisdom and knowledge that you got later on. So it was something that you looked forward to in life, and you were highly respected in the village because of the challenges and the mountains that you've had to climb in order to get to sit in that council of that circle. And so bringing back that reverence that comes from that, instead of us trying to cling to all trying to look like 14-year-olds, you know, and trying to be like 14-year-olds, it negates the wisdom and the beauty that comes with age, and you know, and comes with a life well lived, and the maturity that's there. But we have an immature culture at the moment. The Western culture is very, very immature. It's like we are in our teenagehood years right now, and so
I still say we're children.
Yeah,
we're still children. We're all wounded children walking around, and we're just learning what really is unconditional love, and we're doing the best that we can. Everything that we do, for the most part, we think we're doing it because we love someone. You know, sometimes we hit our kids, or we yell at them, you know, and we're so hard on ourselves because that's all we know. That's how they've taught us that love is tough. And little by little, we're being connected with that feminine aspect, that motherly aspect of our matriarchal years that was vanished because we went through the dark ages for thousands of years now, but it's coming back. The goddess is coming back, but this is good for both the masculine and the feminine. It's not just for women. I think that's where the misperception's coming in. They're thinking, oh, it's not about woman power. So why don't you tell us, like, what is an embodiment, a personification of a wild woman in her embodiment, but, you know, aligned, one that is aligned.
Well, for me, I always use a lot of flowers. I mean, thank God I'm living here in Bali with access to flowers everywhere and nature everywhere. But I love the metaphors of flowers. And if you look at a rose, or you look at a marigold, or you look at a frangipani, I mean, they're all unique and beautiful in their own right. And you would never like hold that beautiful white and yellow frangipani and say, you know, geez, I wish it was red like a rose, you know?
No.
It's like, not, it's a frangipani. And so for each woman, it's like, you know, you come through with your Peruvian ancestry, and it's like you have your beautiful dark eyes and your dead straight hair, and, you know, your beautiful color skin. And it's like, that's the flower you are. And so you don't need to do anything to yourself, to change yourself, to be a better flower, you know, to be a better woman, or to be, you know, a wilder woman or whatever. For me, like flowers, you know, when we use the word wild, and we think like wild and crazy, and sometimes, yes, that's an aspect of it. But for me, wild is like when you look at nature and you see, you know, flowers just growing, they're just beautiful just in their own right. A tree and its, you know, unique shape that it's got to reach for the light, so it's going to go crooked this way, and another branch coming out this way. It's wild, and it's being itself. So for me, the most important thing about being a wild woman awakening is coming back to that authenticity. And for each person, it's unique.
Correct.
Because for each person, we have our own uniqueness, our own fragrance, you know, our own reflection of the divine. And, you know, when I do my women's work, and I have a circle of, you know, 50 women, and they're all naked, you know, I love like having all naked women standing in a circle, and invite them to look around at this circle, and you see
we're all so different.
Breasts are the same, no knees are the same, no bellies
no nipples are the same. Yeah, everyone's so different.
No face is the same.
Yeah.
And, you know, so these stereotypes that we're getting that are, you know, I feel is just an agenda that's being pushed by an industry that makes a lot of money from us not feeling good about ourselves, not feeling enough about ourselves as we are, as the Creatrix created us.
Correct.
And so the need to change your face, or the need to change your breasts, or the need to change
or even just to fit in. They
to
need
fit
to
in,
fit in and being accepted. That's, I feel like it's the hard.
Yeah.
We do everything because we're trying to be accepted.
Exactly, and loved.
Right.
We want love, and
We're crying out for love all
crying
the
out
time.
for love all the time, and all these things are just cries for love. And so, and also the more we can, for me also, the Wild Woman Awakening is a woman who doesn't give a shit anymore about what other people think about her. It's like some people are going to love you, some people are not. It's just, that's just the world we live in. And the more we cultivate within ourselves, self-love for ourselves.
Self-love is so important.
That's the key. That's what we're doing here and then, that realization, because like in the Western thing, as I was saying before, about we become so self-identified with the physical body as this is who I am. And it's like, it's so not, the body for me is a vehicle. It's like this incredible gift that Shiva part, our Shiva consciousness comes into the Shakti, the manifested form, takes form of a man or a woman on the earth to come to this university for our soul to grow and expand in our consciousness, the part of ourselves that's conscious, to awaken to more of that. And so, we can't do that without this physical body.
Yes.
And I do believe that, nature doesn't make any mistakes, like the way she is. She's perfect. I mean, I have two sons. I have a black son and I have a white son. I have a 6'2" son and a 5'4" son, and they both came out of the same body,
Same womb,
and it's just, nature is like phenomenal like that. And so it's such a gift. And so much of the self-loathing that's happening is because people loathe the body. It's like as ridiculous as loathing a car, the car that you've been given, when it's like, be grateful you got a car. If it works and it, runs, and, who cares what it really looks like? It's like, because beauty is something that for me is from the inside out. And the more you keep cultivating that self-love, the more you just look beautiful on the outside.
From
and
within.
So it doesn't matter if you're 110 years old, if someone's got that in place, they look beautiful. And you see that beauty in their eyes, like when you meet masters and teachers and they are radiating this love from their eyes.
They do have that sparkle in their eyes. It's pretty incredible.
It's an incredible spark that's there, and it has very little to do with how many wrinkles they have. Whereas, you could see someone who has had the nose job, had the boob job, had this job, had that job, done so many things to themselves, and the self-loathing is building inside of them, and it doesn't matter what they've done, they're not looking any more beautiful with all this money they've spent on trying to fix or change or look more beautiful. They don't actually look more beautiful.
The radiance and magnetism, it really is
because what's shining through is their self-hatred of the body, of themselves, and all the afflictions that we're seeing that are modern day afflictions, bulimia, anorexia, so many things that women are suffering from because they don't feel that the body is like that they can fit into that supermodel. Meanwhile, that supermodel has been photoshopped, her neck has been sculpted, her cheekbones have been raised, her nose has been straightened. No one looks like that. It's like every flower.
And they try to maintain that image. Even that model has changed and she looks different.
Exactly. And there's no leeway in our society for the naturalness and the natural state of being a human being. And so my work really is to help people to get their feet back on the earth, reconnect to their ancestry, because there's also been a big severance between
Ancestry is huge.
our
we do
ancestors.
Not pay honor, reverence to our ancestors.
Yeah. One of my teachers in Africa, in Zimbabwe, he had only ever lived out in the villages in Zimbabwe, and when he came to Harare, which is the city, the first thing he said, just looking around, was like, "Oh, these people are not connected to their ancestors, because if they were, they wouldn't have built in this way, because it's not sustainable." So, what I learned in Africa was through that ancestral connection and guidance, so think of our ancestors as disincarnate souls that are, having a bird's and eagle's eye view, and
They're
we're
looking
down
at
we're
us.
down in it, we're
Yeah.
down here in it, and then there's these beings that are having like the bigger picture view. So if you consulted that bigger picture and you said, hey, what do you think, should we blow up that mountain over there because we found there's gold inside of it, and we
Yeah.
can use that, the bigger picture is going to say no, because then the next 7 generations down the line are not going to have the clean water that comes from that thing, and water is life, and we need, so they would listen to what that advice was from the ancestors, not the little human ego mind that's down here on the earth. They would have that oracle to get that information of like how
That we
to
all
live,
have access
that we all have
to.
access to. And I mean, Africa, they had the largest population on the planet Earth ever, and they lived in harmony with dinosaurs. A rhinoceros, a elephant, they're all dinosaurs. They're from
Correct.
that era.
Yeah.
And there's, the only reason there are pockets of those animals still alive is because when the colonizers came through, mainly like the British colonizers came through, they built national parks knowing that they were going to destroy all the resources of Africa. So they built these national parks for the future to
Just to keep
keep
a little
these
bit of
animals,
reserve
a
and
little
the
bit of a
natural-
reserve. I mean, they're called reserves,
reserves,
to
yeah.
reserve that. Whereas in their natural habitat, the people had ways to live in harmony with nature, with huge amounts of animals
Yes.
and huge amounts of human beings in harmony, and while the, Chinese were developing gunpowder, in Africa, they were developing music. The first metal that they made was not guns and weapons.
Why do
was
you think
music?
that Africans just naturally come out with rhythm in their hips, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can follow the beat. I mean, that's just such a gift
Yeah.
that they have.
Yeah.
They come in such little kids, everyone. They can
Yeah.
just follow a beat.
Yeah, and well, because rhythm and music and everything is part of life, and any kid from any culture, you watch a 2-year-old, a Chinese 2-year-old, an African 2-year-old, an American 2-year-old, any of them, you put some good music on, they're all going to do a similar kind of jumpy movement.
Correct.
It's the same human movement in the body that feels rhythm, because the first drum that we're hearing inside the womb
Heart.
is the heartbeat,
Yes.
and the heart beats in a rhythm, and that's where we feel that. And so
And that's what we hear when we're inside the womb.
that's what we hear it, like,
Yeah.
water inside water, we're inside water inside the
Yes.
womb. Sound travels 4 times faster inside water than it does in air.
Correct.
So, when we're a fetus growing inside this rhythm, we're hearing the rhythms of life, we're hearing the rhythms of our mother's voice, we're hearing the rhythms of her heartbeat, and the rhythm of our own heartbeat is entrained into the rhythm of our mother's heartbeat. So we have that naturally, intrinsically in us. And that's why human beings created the drum. They wanted to
That's
hear,
why drum circles are so important.
yeah,
So,
and
so
bring us
incredibly
back
important.
into, this.
We're all the same rhythm because our hearts, whatever the drum beat is,
Mm-hmm.
all our hearts start palpitating into the same rhythm, which is almost the same when people go into large concerts and
Yes.
all the vibrations, everyone's in the same high because
Yeah.
they're all into the same sound wave.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, just talking about we are energy, we are vibration. All of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, we've all been synthesized to the same frequency, which is
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Yeah, totally. So, and that is the gift that like each cultural race has brought different gifts to the collective of humanity. And so even in that too, it's like I believe that we came from different star systems to the earth. We came here to the earth at different times. And that the black races, the African races, are the oldest. They've been here on the earth the longest.
Yeah.
And learned how to live in harmony.
Started
and,
in Africa,
yeah.
the beginning of it
and,
all.
and
then Egypt, you can go back.
and
yeah.
Asia, like bringing a different frequency from a different star, and then they brought, like, if you think all the yoga traditions, all the what a culture dedicated itself to was the mastery of the mind, the mastery of the breath, yoga, all these.
And a lot of it has to do with topography, right, where it's located, and climate's different.
Yeah.
All right, so you have the countries that are on more on the extremes. So you're just going to be more rigid. It's much cooler. So you're much more mental. And as you get into the equator, the subtropic, between the subtropic lines, it's a much warmer area. So you're much more into earth, into the elements. It's much warmer. So you're a much fiery person. So you're going with your emotions too, right? So you have
it's interesting because like in Australia, the Aboriginal people, because they, most of Australia in the middle of it is all desert. And so any environment where like your food source, your survival, you need to know where the water is and how to get it. You need to know where your food source is and how to get it. So their initiations, their culture, what evolved is so tough, is so strong, because if you didn't pay attention in that lesson of learning like where that water is, in those songs that were carrying the pathway, like the songs that they sing in Aboriginal, same, the rhythms and the songs were all dream times telling you. So you would sing the song as you were walking the song lines out in the desert. And in the song, it's telling you where to find the water, where to find the things. So you had to like learn the song properly because you're learning this. You're actually learning a map. They didn't, have a map. That the map was a song, and so song and rhythm led you to the billabong, led you to where the water was. And if you weren't paying attention during your initiation, you're going to perish. You're not gonna find the water. You've gone way off track. You start singing something else. So. But like even techno music that evolved in actually it started I think in Europe, but then when it migrated over to Detroit, the black people that took that music, it was like they take all the sounds of what's around them, and to understand, like musicality is another way to understand the wisdom of the earth. So they took. Or the wisdom of your environment, where you find yourself.
Yes.
So the sounds of like screeching police sirens, screeching subway cars, the rhythm, they still heard the rhythm in that. Gunshots, all these sounds that you hear regularly, and they put them into the rhythm in the music to create this new modern music that was from our new modern lifestyle.
But it makes sense because it depicts the culture now.
Yeah, and it depicts the culture now. We're not, walking bare feet around through the savannah, with wild animals chasing us. We got wild people and wild, times, chasing us or whatever. So, but music and dance is a way for us to come back into the body, and culturally, every culture on the planet has had dance in its roots.
Correct.
And as a way that we come together in celebration. Like I think dance is as important as sex, as eating food.
For reproduction.
Yeah.
As a form to express ourselves.
Yeah,
and get our
as ways
creativity out.
It's just part of the human experience is dance. And because we don't view it as such, it's like, it's not necessary, the things of what are deemed necessary and essential and what's not. Yeah. And for me, dance is like absolutely essential, absolutely necessary part of
the three necessary things in life is eat, sleep, and reproduction. That's it. Mm-hmm. So the three basic needs of life. Mm-hmm. It's that simple, and everything else is...
and connection, we need touch.
With reproduction.
Yeah. And we can have reproduction, but we need that connection to others, like we didn't become a super species on the planet.
There is, since you brought it up, there is a study that has been done where 2 baby monkeys were separated and the mother was gone. So what they did is they recreated a mother, and one actually where the monkey was able to breastfeed from the mother, and the other one didn't have to breastfeed, but it did have a towel, so they can actually go and hug the mom. So they try to see where would the monkey be more attracted to.
Yeah, that study's called Harlow's monkeys.
And then it's
only a Westerner would even have to do that experiment. It was like, because it's so obvious, right? Of course, they had a wire monkey, a wire mother, for the one baby, and they had a cloth one for another. And the one that obviously had the cloth mother and could have some sort of comfort grew faster and didn't have as many problems as the one that only had a wire
because we're looking for connection.
We need, but like even the Western mind to create that as an experiment to see, it's like that's so unhuman. You know what I mean? It's like, of course, and of course, every animal, like for us to even do experiments to think that animals don't feel or animals don't share.
Well, that just tells you how disconnected we have been, and it's okay. You know, we feel compassion for that because a lot of us were asked to live, and we choose our parents as souls, and sometimes we choose to have those experiences where our parents have been very disconnected from nature and what is natural. So we're here to relearn that.
Yes.
And that's why we bring tools like this and what you offer.
And to heal our bodies.
To be able to remember, that what we need is connection, because it is that distorted. Well, we don't even realize that all we're seeking for is just to be seen and understood and loved, and being seen for who we are, because as little kids, we're not allowed to feel, even when we're crying. Your mom comes and tells you, are you okay? You can't feel that way. You're not supposed to feel that way. Be happy now. You're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be sad. So all of a sudden, that creates a big misalignment and a split. So then as you get older and you start feeling a certain way, you start punishing yourself because you're not supposed to feel that way. So we're just coming back and relearning, which is why I loved when I found your program, because anyone that's ready to come into their elemental roots are ready to embrace, they just start feeling the drum, and there's something that calls them. And maybe it's when they grew up in a very Western society, like, well, I don't want to look like a hippie, right? And I hear it all the time, especially as I've had my coming out. I would say, my sister like, oh, where are you? Everyone looks like a hippie. And at first I was like, wait, what? And I'm like, it's okay, we are. And just own it. And I just feel like more and more people are becoming more earthy, right? And you want to be someone that's earthy and that's also aligned, right? And that's the most important thing, where we're just embracing everyone, because everyone has something to share. Everyone has gifts. Yeah. So tell us more about like 5 elementals, and that's your big program that you do, and there's different categories. So it's dance, but with the elements. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, really, really, it just keeps everything like nature, keeps morphing and fractaling and changing. And so the 5 elements dance is a dance practice that I developed when I was doing my yoga teacher training. And so from my shamanic training, I was always working with earth, water, fire, air. And when I did Ayurveda, ether is the 5th element. And I was like, oh my God, how could I have like left ether out?
The connection of everything.
Well, and there's more space than there is anything else, than there is matter. And then it, literally like a download, it just sort of went as a dance process. Because for me, I need to understand things in my physical body.
Correct.
Before my mind gets it. So I saw it as a dance process
it's a great download.
And that's really, I've been teaching it like I received that download. But then as far as the trainings go, because I received that and, I was teaching that, but then I don't want people to be a carbon copy of me or, like a yoga school of yoga, and I think it was BKS Iyengar that said, even if you study with me and I teach you everything I know, you can never do BKS Iyengar yoga because you're not BKS Iyengar. You're you.
I love that. I like that.
And so there has to be something of you in whatever you're doing.
You're integrating.
And it needs to come through you. And because we are each a fractal of the one, then, I've had my childhood experiences, my life experiences, my ancestry. I've lived all over the world with all these tribes and different people. When that energy, that work comes through me, it's going to come through my filters and my life experiences and be flavored with that. When it comes through you, because of your life experiences and your ancestry and your gifts that you are here to bring and your lifetimes that you've had and your soul imprint, it's going to come through you in a completely different way.
Such complex individuals. Very, very complex, very unique.
It's all the same. So for me, again, that thing of when you look at a forest, and a healthy forest has biodiversity. Yes. And so in our cultures as well, a healthy society, a healthy family, a healthy anything is when there's biodiversity. When there's diversity, and within the diversity we find the oneness. So oneness has been used to us trying to control and manipulate us into us all thinking the same, all acting the same, all eating the same, all dressing the same, all looking the same. That's monoculture.
Yes.
And what happens in nature, if you have a monoculture, everything dies.
Yeah.
You know, there's no room for the bees, there's no room for the butterflies, there's no room for the biodiversity,
yeah.
and the system becomes dead and requires a lot of chemicals to keep it alive. And that's where, you know, society has been heading with this monoculture. I mean, even the school system, right? No two children learn the same way. And yet we all get plonked into this school system.
A lot of our creativity
gets
and
you know, some people are kinesthetic, some
intelligence.
people... intelligence. And if you don't fit into the one system, then you feel left out, or you feel like there's something wrong with you or whatever. And it's like, no, we are all diverse. We are all unique. We all learn in a different way. We all have a different way of sharing.
And more there are different alternative schools, different types of schools that are more into the art, that allow kids to just flourish and be the way they do. And then there are some kids, like luckily for me, I fit into the school system because I was very analytical, and you know, I was okay doing tests, but I didn't realize how much of my creativity was completely stripped away. Because I was really good on following rules and just following the system. But at the same time, I was taking away all of my creativity completely, to the point where I never saw myself as an artist or as anything creative till literally maybe 3 years ago.
Exactly.
And it just started flourishing or just having a different perspective and opening up to it. And, you know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's just
totally.
My
so when I do the trainings, I bring each student, they all get seeds, you know, because I have this connection with the seeds and the trees. And for me, like the seeds and the trees represent, I pray with them, you know, I work with seeds, and I've been an avid seed saver for 30 years. And so I pray with the seeds first, and it's like for me using runes or something. Like if somebody gets a durian seed, I know that person, what their gift is. Not everybody's going to like it, but those who like it are going to love it, just like a durian, right? And so it's like, don't try and focus on pleasing everybody. Just please find your peeps that love you, and just serve them, you know, when they're doing the teacher training. And when they do
gotta cultivate your own seed.
Yeah, and when they do their practicals, you know, like when they have to. So I give them the map. It's basically the map, and I'm teaching them the map of how I use it and how I have used it and how it can be used. But then I want to see how it's going to come through them. So they're, you know, if there's like 20 people, by the time we get to, you know, 15 people have done their practicals, because I don't want to have like, 20 practice. It's not like school. It's the Western school of like the first few, everybody's just trying to copy me and trying to do it right, you know, this right thing. And then, you know, I have a private consultation with each person, and I'm trying to pull out and draw out their own unique flavor. And then their creativity, you see it come alive, and then it becomes alive. Then it becomes living, because then they're owning it.
Because they didn't even recognize it.
No, and they don't even know that. And also because we're so conditioned from so many years in school to want to do it right?
Yes.
That we're trying to do it right. And so, like you said, we shut off our own creativity. We don't even think we're allowed.
We
don't even give permission to do that, you know, because we're so afraid to step off the mat and do it, you know, differently.
And not be accepted.
And so we as soon as someone gives you permission to like open your blinkers and think a little wider and bring some creativity into it, it's like then all sorts of things happen and all sorts of different processes. So basically, I'm helping people who want to serve others, you know, like the highest form of yoga is to be of service.
Correct.
And the highest form of a human being, you know, we do have this desire to want to be of service, to help and give back. Especially if, you know, as healers, I feel like we choose to come through, have these very intense experiences as children.
We do.
And then if we don't die, you know, through that experience, and we actually survive, and then we thrive, and then we find a way to come back to gratitude for the experience. it's a big process that we've gone through, that we're out, like the butterfly, we've morphed out into the other side. So we can look back and have that perspective, and then we can support and help others who are then also going through that, and they might be, ready to commit suicide or ready to die or whatever.
Yes.
And we can see that, from the eagle eye view where they are at, and help guide them in their own way to keep them on track, that this too shall pass, this too shall pass, this too shall pass. Come on, keep going, keep going. And poof, then they're birthed through the birth canal, and they come out, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
So
that's why sharing our stories are so powerful. Everyone that's been in a very low point, and how that came about, because that gives a lot of inspiration, and it gives other people who are going through those same low points to know that they can come out of that darkness and see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's so important to share what you're going through.
Yeah.
And how are people going to know? Sometimes, I know with me, especially before, I just go into my cave, go into my turtle cave, and I don't like bothering anyone. So I've told my friends, I'm like, if this happens, and reach out to me, because it's so hard for me to reach out.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotten better at it, but before I wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So reach out, people. Set up a system.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. And especially in these times that we've been living through right now, so many people suffering in isolation, because it's not natural for us to be in this much isolation. So, reach out, find
to ask for help.
Find those connections, get your feet on the earth, get yourself out into nature. So important to have that alignment again with nature, and then to reach out with others, when you need to, because it's very important. And the thing, last night I was playing DJing. It was one of my students, and there was 5 people who were in the training were there, because what happens through going through this intensive experience together, and having this experience of being most people say that this is the most authentic I think I've ever had an experience of myself, was in the training, where they were
the 5 elementals dance training
when they
that
go
you
through
do.
this 3-week. So I've split it into 2 sections. The first section is elemental embodiment, because what I realized was, because I've lived very close to the earth, I just kind of assumed everybody has this connection or whatever.
We don't.
Also, I was getting a lot of young people, and you can only take people, a lot of people, everybody wants to teach, but nobody wants to practice. And life is a practice, and
it's a muscle.
Is where there's a growth. It's a muscle you have to exercise.
It.
So, and you can only take people as deep as you are willing to go with yourself. And so to facilitate, it's an art. There's an art to facilitation and holding space for others to have.
You're a master,
experience.
Malaika, when it comes to holding space. I can feel it. I just went to your class, the African dance, and at the end you bring us all together. And I can just feel not just the presence of the authenticity that you bring, but I can feel all your guides that you bring in, and it's just all pure light, and it's so soothing and healing for everyone. So you do have a gift, and also because you've been honoring this path for many, many, many years, and you just don't talk it, you walk it. I think because of that, you're being gifted more grace, and I feel like more of this beautiful, benevolent beings that want to help us out, whether, I know you work more with the earth, but we also have galactic beings,
for
right?
sure.
Everyone, they want to come in that are aligned. So you're
I always call them the light beings too, and,
bring in the light
and,
beings, or star ancestors, definitely.
For sure, and that's the thing to remember, that we are, multidimensional beings having a multidimensional sensory experience. And to raise our consciousness, we have to remove ourselves from the 3rd dimensional reality and the perception that this is it, because this is so not it. Even to think that, we're taught evolution as if it's happened and it's finished. It's a continual process. We are still evolving, continually changing. Change is such a part of our human experience, and it's so funny because human beings just resist change so much.
That's the biggest,
we don't
hardest
like it.
thing to do.
We don't
and that's
like
something
it.
That's a guarantee. It's change.
from the moment you're conceived,
Yes.
from one cell, you're two cells,
Correct.
and in 15 minutes, you're 16 cells, and you're 32 cells, and you're just constantly changing, and it's constantly,
Flower of life.
yeah, a flower of life,
And every
that's
7 years, we
morphing.
have a complete different body because our cells completely die off and we create new
Yeah.
ones.
And so the clinging, is what causes all the suffering, the clinging to who we think we are,
Yeah.
and not allowing that perception to be a little bit broader of, oh, wow, I'm changing, I'm morphing, like, who am I today, every day. And I always say, like we think, maybe there was 50,000 people on the planet that died yesterday, that just didn't wake up. Today was their day to go. And so when I wake up, I always sort of think, oh, pat my body, give my body some taps and go, I'm awake, I'm alive, another day. I got another day on the earth and another day to change my destructive ways. And so that's like it's an opportunity to bring into alignment every day is another day to have that opportunity to try and...
We're in a university, like a university of life that doesn't change. So just bringing back to wild woman embodiment and, a wild woman embodiment, someone that becomes very connected with earth, right? So you really get to understand its waves and its cycles. But then the more that you connect with earth and the elements and the seasons and, also eating elemental nutrients. And I feel like the more you come grounded, the more you realize we come from the stars. Because you look at all traditions, Egyptian, Mayan, all African, Australian, they're all being guided by the stars.
Yeah, totally.
It's all connected.
Yeah, totally. And all our stories that are connected to traversing through universes to get here to the earth, to have one of these, to have a body. So just appreciate it because this too shall pass, like that. And it's, and so that for me is the gift of being on the earth is that I know that I'm a galactic being that comes from the universe. But I know that I've had many, 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 many lifetimes here on the earth and many different incarnations. And so this one, it's just like, living through the times that we're in right now, I'm like, wow, I really chose to be here again for going through this again, like, but it feels to me like the way I see it is here we are, we're having this expansion, we're having this contraction. That's what life is, an expansion, contraction. It mimics itself in our breath. We breathe in. We can't just keep inhaling. We can't keep expanding without the exhale. We welcome the exhale as much as we welcome the inhale. So life is about this expansion. Sometimes we're feeling on top of the world.
And that too shall pass.
And everything's in flow. And it's like, this too shall pass, And then you can't just keep inhaling. You have to, go into the contraction. And so we have this polarity that we're experiencing constantly of this expansion, this contraction, this growth, and then this stagnation, this, highs, then the lows. And it's, but yet somewhere inside there's something that's just always there. There's a peace that's there. And that's the beauty that the Eastern cultures have brought to the earth is the power of meditation, because it's only through the silence and the stillness, when we still this busy mind, this wild, drunken monkey mind, and we come back and we connect with that part of ourselves that is androgynous, that is peaceful, that is content, that is infinite, that is eternal. And that's the peace. Like even they say when a human body dies, there's like 6 grams gone from the human body immediately when they die. That's the soul, it's like 6 grams. And in Egypt, they have like the what do they call them again?
You're talking about the feather,
with the feather when they're weighing them on the scales with the
Anubis.
Yeah, Anubis, and they're weighing and that's the weight of the soul. And so our whole mission here is to
heart with the feather to see
how much light
your heart is.
Yes.
So if you've been compassionate and you understand love, then it should be in equilibrium as the feather. But if you have a heavy heart, then you need to come back.
If you
and
focused on just too
material,
material,
too much into the
like
ego.
too into
And we're eternal. It's okay.
Yeah.
So just remember that you're not going to die knowing everything
Mm-hmm.
unless you do become completely awaken in this lifetime and become a Brahm, a Jesus Christ, a Yogananda, any of the ascended masters that have come here and passed through this earth that
and
you
that
should
have
become.
given us the tools and the pathway, to
And they still come through.
yeah, to
They still come
follow
through and
in
channel.
for that. And I feel like now this awakening that's happening on the planet now is, birth is messy. I've been to 15 births before, and birth is, birth
Are you a
is,
doula as well?
well, no, but in Australia, they had a moment there when midwifery, like having home births, was they made it illegal, and there was a lot of young people that they didn't want to have birth in the hospital, so they were just choosing to birth at home with no midwife, and so then just by nature, I mean, obviously, maybe in a past life I was a midwife catching babies or whatever, because I just naturally knew what to do. And so people would just like call me up, and then my name was Shazay, and so people would just like call Shazay, and I get these calls, someone's in labor, and they were all friends, they were all people I knew, and and again,
similar to Mother Teresa too. She didn't have any proper training, and she became like a doula and midwife. All of a sudden, she was helping out in the villages. In Calcutta.
Exactly. Just
being
inner
called,
knowing,
inner knowing.
And that's
Mary Magdalene is another midwife, another doula that just had a wise, deep knowledge, and was just starting to get called. She just knew what to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe that we all have access to that, because it's in the collective consciousness. And so when the more we can tap into that, but it requires one of the other agendas or things that has happened here in this realm has been to disconnect us from our intuition. And what is our intuition? Our intuition is this, and that is the feminine, ability to tune in to the unseen realms, and our intuition is it's a guide, it's a guidance system. And so in those old pagan times where there was women who were highly sensitive beings and highly intuitive beings in the oracles, they would be consulted, because someone couldn't listen to their own intuition, they would consult them to find out which is the best way. Should I move this way? Should I go that way? They would
go to the oracles, the high priestesses.
Yeah, and then they got labeled as witches and whatever.
Eventually,
and
after it became more of a patriarchal.
Yeah, when it became more patriarchy. But everyone has the ability to connect into their intuition.
Correct.
And, when we trust our bodies, so there's also been this thing of like instilled in humans to not trust their own body. And we
lie to ourselves and we don't listen to our bodies all the time.
All the time.
And I love it because I have friends that are very conscious and want to learn. So we catch each other because we've just been programmed not to. Because sometimes we just want to give people the benefit of the doubt when they're lying to you. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Your body's telling you no, but you want to be nice. You want to believe in it. And you can still be nice, but know that they're lying to you.
Yeah, and know that your first and foremost work here on earth is to take care of your piece of the real estate of the earth, which is your body.
That's nature, people.
That's
you want to help
thing.
Nature.
Yeah, so you can't go helping other people. I mean, you can. There's plenty of people who help other people.
We have one night off sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, of course, and there's people who neglect their physical body, but they want to be of service to others and help others, and it's like turn it around because you're wanting to look outside of yourself or to give because you don't feel worthy or whatever of giving that to yourself.
It's part of the wounded healer, I think. I see this with my mom a lot. She's just a natural shamanic, just naturally psychic. And it's so much easier to go and help others, right? Because you have this natural calling. You've completely forget about yourself. I mean, just honor yourself completely. And then there needs to be like training. It's like, okay, well, we need to go in first. Because like, imagine how much you already help people out and all that you do and all this natural gifts they have. Imagine if you love yourself first, how much more powerful you can be.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people are getting a taste of their healing powers, but you have to come in first. You got to love yourself first.
Yeah.
And honor your body, honor everything that you're absorbing, everything that you're putting in.
Yeah.
everything's energy and everything's consciousness.
And the thing I always say to women is like, think of it that your mom, my mom, grew us inside her body.
Yes.
You know, she didn't have to think, okay, today I'm making Maria's beautiful white teeth, you know, like make sure, you know, that I plant the right, you know, cells in the right place, that those teeth are going to come in perfect and straight. And, you know, today I'm growing her brain, you know, this incredible, intelligent, beautiful woman with your own thoughts and your own thing. No, of course, our mothers were doing laundry or going outside or screaming at 3 other children that they were raising or whatever. And her body was growing this think of how complex a human being is. I mean, even with the best of our science right now, they cannot
the human body
mimic the human body of what our fullest potential is that we can do.
They're still exploring. I mean, there are more DNAs that are yet to be uncovered.
But how if the universe, if the creatrix can trust our body enough that it has given us the ability to reproduce all life through us, why can we not trust our own body? Like, it's time for us as women to come back to trusting our wombs, to trust, you know, the womb is how it speaks to us. The womb is how, you know, it's not just the
it's
chalice.
Not just listening to
it's
the
not
heart.
Just the well, it's
like
not
what your heart
the womb
feels
is not just
what's happening in your womb.
Yeah, but the womb is not just the chalice that is the place where life grows. It's also a portal, it's a universe of itself. And so when we can learn to listen to the subtle speakings, whisperings of the womb, she'll say, don't go with that guy. And you know it, you heard it, but your ego or your mind, oh, he's so cute,
it's the animalistic,
so this or whatever, the animal, and you override it, which, you know, is like, there's no right and no wrong. Yeah. But we know that the womb is life affirming. She's always going to choose for you what is for your highest good.
Yes.
And we can cancel it out and go against our intuition, and then we're going to learn a vital lesson, and that's okay too, and that's perfect, and that's what we're here to do. And then maybe we learn to listen a little closer the next time. But the more we can teach our daughters and teach our sons and teach children to listen to their feelings, listen to their emotions, listen to the subtler whisperings that are happening in the intuitional field, the more we will not have to suffer so much through life.
So let's switch on that. So let's talk about the wheel of life and the blood rite passages, because that's very important, especially for little girls that are becoming women, and for them to honor their body and to know what's happening, right? With all of a sudden they start bleeding, and what that means, and how to feel pleasure for themselves first. You know, as opposed to being put out with a man, and they don't even know what to expect, what's right, what's wrong, and they're just kind of learning like little animals. Like we don't need to learn that way anymore. So there are mothers like yourself that hold space. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that wheel of life, I can't remember who created the one that I use, but with the 13 phases of woman. But some of those phases, like
I did want to ask what tradition is like, because usually it's more like the maiden,
and then you enter the wheel Celtic. Being the daughter, because you're born from woman into the circle of women as a daughter, and then your next phase you grow, you know, into the young maiden. So from the daughter, and when you become the maiden, when you start to bleed, and that's, you know, so women's initiations are inbuilt into our bodies, whereas male initiation has to be an external initiation because they don't have the same physiology. So
it's
and that's one thing that we've
physiology
lost.
Only outside. Outside, literally, like if you're turning a sock inside out. It's the same exact, only inside out.
And so they don't have the menstruation cycle. So that was demarking, like, okay, that young girl is now a maiden now, you know, when she gets her first blood. Whereas in male initiation, they used to do an initiation for the boys at a certain age. Like in Africa, it was 7, then 14, you know, to help grow them up into men. And that's one of the big things that we're missing is initiation. And through the circles, these circles of life, each phase, like to get to one phase, to get to the another phase, is an initiation. So from the maiden, then your next phase could be, some people skip over it, or could be the mother. But even if we don't choose to have children, we still find there's a phase in our life where we mother things, whether they're projects, other people, other people's children, but it's like we go through this mothering phase. It's a natural phase.
It doesn't necessarily have to be kids. You mother projects.
Projects, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to necessarily be kids. And then from the mother, there comes a phase where then you're like, you're you want to start your career, and you're serving others, and you're entering into that career phase of like serving the community, or in a much bigger way serving the whole village. And you come into your your shamanic high priestess, or the Amazon, or coming into these different phases of woman where you're in that like powerhouse, you're in your almost your yang phase,
in the Inca
where you're out there, you're doing
the virgins of the sun. The priestesses are called the virgins of the sun.
And then you'll come later on in life, you might become a grandmother. If you did have children, your blood stops, you'll go through that phase of menopause where then your blood stops, and all that life force energy that's been going out of your body suddenly comes back into the body. And now you are, your intuition is different. Your whole view on life is different. You're not ruled by your hormones anymore. You're not up and downing all, every month. And you're coming more into your crone years.
The wise woman.
Yeah, the wise woman, and she's been given such a bad rap in our culture.
No one wants to
Everyone's
be the
terrified
crown.
to even like go and
I'm
visit
pretty
her.
excited.
Yeah,
I'm like,
and
I'm going to do the best. So when I get to my crone years, I'm just going to be like completely become an oracle.
Yeah.
But you have to train for it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's it's that cycle. And even the crone, like she'll have her power point, and then the decline in life and going down, and she goes back to being a baby
Body
again.
diseases.
The body is disintegrating.
The
You're leaving
older
the body.
you get, the closer you are to rebirth, though.
And to the rebirth of the soul, of like,
Correct.
okay, that lifetime you've learned all this, and there that soul can leave that physical form behind, and the physical form does the full circle as well, because it goes through from baby through all these phases, maturing into the full gamut of life, and then it peaks, and then it starts declining again.
True.
And then old people with dementia, and they're my grandmother, she was 98 when she died, and she had to wear nappies again, and like wear diapers again, and she lost all her teeth, and she went blind, and she was just like this vulnerable little, like a newborn baby again.
How was her memory?
She unfortunately had lost that.
Memory at the end as well.
So there is these phases in life, and when we see that circle of life everywhere, and realize that life is a circle, and we are part of that circle, and no matter where you're at in your life, like we're all spiral, and it's a spiral.
Phase.
Yeah, it's a spiral too. It's not even like a finite, a circle, a flat circle. It's a spiral. So we spiral. So we're never exactly back where we were. We never, like even our birthdays, we say, oh, we're celebrating our birthday, it's come around again. But actually we've spiraled, we've done a whole spiral. And even the way that we teach in school that the sun is, in the center, and the earth is circling around the sun, and the planets are circling around the sun. That's like, it's like the flat earth theory. I mean, we're beyond that, it is not.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. They know now, but because of all the textbooks and the physical matter and the conditioning and the school system and everything that we put into place, is too much for them to change all of that. To go, oh, we were wrong. Oh, this is, but that's how we're learning.
It's changing
we're
little
learning
by
new
little.
things. And it's like, oh, that's not actually.
Even Elon Musk is coming out with like challenges for people at times, like, what if this all was a dream, right? And to me, it's like, duh. I have to explain it to people how the reason why we're able to create virtual reality is because that's who we are. We can't create anything that we don't already have inside of us. We're just kind of discovering ourselves.
Yeah. It's a
that's all
constant
it
process
is.
of
Everything is a game.
life discovering itself, and living through our eyes and our, it's like oneness consciousness. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I was up late last night playing music and dancing and celebrating with one of my students.
Each day.
And I feel like existence, I think God is too short, too small a word to put the infinite consciousness into a word. You know, it's just it's beyond comprehension of my brain and beyond
The
comprehension.
more we
of
know, the
most
less we
people's
know.
brains.
It's that simple.
And I feel like that it experiences everything and doesn't judge anything as good, bad, or indifferent. It just is having experiences through each one of us. And so each one of our experiences are contributing to the whole collective experience of consciousness. There's as many realities as there are human beings, because we're all seeing life through our own filters.
We're all one, having different experiences, different realities.
Yeah.
We're all just fractal of one another. You know, and it's I'm creating you at the moment, like it really exists. I mean, I've been in the dreams many times now. And even when you get out of it, it's like you have to remember that, like, this is everything. I'm just creating myself. Like, absolutely
Totally.
everything. It's just me.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. It can get lonely when you know that as well. And it's like, come back. Because it's just you. It's just one essence, right? So just take advantage of this beautiful world. Being 3D, you know, being in this heavy, dense form, it's such a beautiful gift, and all these emotions that we have. And I've had so many different types of emotions, especially with experiences and blisses and realizations. And every time it's a very different frequency. So I'm more open to that because there's so much more to experience. Even when I go into my low points, I'm okay with it because that means I'm going to have another experience as well.
Yeah. That's what life is just all about, experience. There is no destination and, you know, no goal. It's, you know, that's the essence of Tantra. Is there is no goal. There is no it's just
every time you plan for a trip, and then when you come back from it, like, what are you talking about? It's everything that you didn't expect. The person you met, or there was a flight delay and something happened. It's always the unexpected, right?
That gives us those rich life experiences and enriches our life. And if we try and control it too much, we miss out on the spontaneity, which the spontaneity is when Shakti just comes through. And, you know, that's why the feminine has been repressed, because she's unpredictable. It's like a storm, you know, that comes through. And, you know, look at a forest. Trees don't grow in straight lines, you know. It's like chaos, you know. So the feminine is that chaos. But the more chaos there is, the higher the life vibration there is, you know, when it's, and we can't control it. And the more we just learn to surrender to the flow of what life, you know, how life wants to flow through us. And that's why dance, and like free dance, is so powerful, because it gives the human being an opportunity in the moment to let that life force energy flow through them. And, you know, sometimes I find if I'm dancing, I might just end up spinning for the whole time, or sometimes I might be shaking.
Whatever energy comes through.
Yeah, and just to allow that energy. And I always feel so much better afterwards, because, you know, we aren't this body, but our consciousness is in this body, and we are in this body. And this body is because it's like a biological computer that takes in data, and some of that data is good, and some of that data is like needs to be delete, you know, it needs to be reconfigured.
It's
and
ready
trauma
to
gets
fall
stuck
off
in the tissues, not in the issues. So the mind is just this looping mind, you know, that's always in the past or in the future, and very rarely in the present moment. And the body is always in the present moment. So the trauma that could be stuck in there, you know, if it's a big trauma like war trauma, rape trauma, childhood sexual abuse trauma, can keep us stuck in the trauma in the body,
which is in the present.
But now we know that the body has plasticity, yeah, and is flexible and can change. But we have to do our work. Like, no, I think now more and more therapists are realizing that you might make a therapist a very wealthy person, because you could have therapy for 20 years and still not get over an issue.
No.
Whereas I know I've had results with people when I do the therapy work, so the mind work and the physical work. The body. We have to come and address the body and the spiritual work, because sometimes it can be mind, body,
soul,
spirit. We are holistic, and we have to approach healing in a holistic way in order to get the results that we want. And so,
Definitely.
so using movement as a way to access those deeper traumas that are laying in the tissues of the body that create limiting beliefs then that feed into our mind, and because we're in a reality that we're creating with our thoughts, then if we have some limiting belief that was instilled in us from some traumatic experience we had when we were 3, then we're creating from that place, because we are creators, we are creatrixes, we are creating constantly.
All is mind.
And the universe doesn't care whether we create
There's no
hell
morality.
or whether we create paradise.
Morality doesn't exist.
It just
That's right.
is just
Everything
constantly
is
creating. So all those practices that can bring us into more mindfulness about what is going on in the mind, what we are thinking, that enables us to bring awareness to catching that limiting. Oh, there's a limiting belief. Do I want to manifest that? Who am I when I believe that thought?
Correct.
How is my reality going to be when I believe that thought? Is that what I want to create? Is that where I want to go? Actually, no, that's not what I want. Then I'm going to catch myself every time I have that negative thought and change it to something positive.
Starts with the awareness.
And it starts with awareness.
You don't even know it's there.
So I have like all these processes I do with masks and with clay and with all these different things I use, because I'm very sensory. I'm like to activate the senses, because then the trauma was, when we had a trauma, all our senses were activated in the physical body.
Well, it lets you know like how scary of being touched as well, especially if you're doing rituals with clay.
Oh yeah. All many different
very
rituals.
Intimate, very sensual at the same time.
Yeah. And also, again, bringing us back to that, like looking at the human body as a piece of art, no matter what size it is, shape it is, they're all just like, you don't judge art, you don't look at that piece of art and say, geez, that's ugly piece of art. It's just
all
art.
Expression.
It's just expression. And same with our bodies, they're just different expressions. Some people are short, some people are fat, some people are tall, some people are long, some people are round, we're all different shapes and sizes, and just to celebrate that. So we need those sensory experiences to come back to the body, get into our bodies, like spend more time in the body,
and be comfortable of our body. There's so much shame
and discomfort
around our body, and I see it. I went to a ceremony. So I thought we were going to start a sweat lodge. So I go to Tulum all the time. I do the Mayan sweat lodges. They're called temazcals.
Temazcal, yeah.
And it's Tulum. You always go in a bikini, no big deal. And I was asked to wrap myself up for ceremony, and I felt I was okay with it, because you have to respect everyone's tradition, but at the same time, I've recognized that that's such old mentality, because I came to this world naked. There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
So how is that not sacred? So why would I have to wrap up? Especially if we're calling in the directions, we're calling in guides. This is my most sacred way of showing up for myself, and it's naked.
Yeah. Well, and it's, it's interesting, because when I was younger and I was living in Australia, and every week, talk about hippies. We were like the ultimate hippies, like every week doing a sweat lodge, doing a fire walk, they were just, we lived in this time. Like I feel so incredibly blessed that I had those experiences, and really outside of time. We were, like I remember coming out one night and, doing a wee on the earth with all this Milky Way and all the stars there, and the fire was glowing inside my teepee that I hand built, and I birthed my second son inside a teepee, and we were living in this community with everybody was living in teepees, and I just remember like sitting there peeing on the earth and looking up at the stars and just going, wow, this could be like 10,000 years ago. Like there's all of these other realities other people are experiencing. This is what I'm experiencing right now.
Because you chose. That's what you're choosing.
That, and in the sweat lodges and everything, because we didn't have, like we learned, but we didn't learn, like I didn't have a lot of the teachings and things that I've had from spiritual guides and spiritual guidance. I haven't had like physical teachers. And so we were doing it
Those
in
are
the
the
way
best guides.
coming through. So all the sweat lodges we always did was naked. We would, crawl in naked and everything.
Well, you're going back
to the womb,
to the uterus. So that didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's leading this?
And you're sitting in the complete darkness. But then, like a lot of the traditions, and like now, here in Bali, and a lot of people who are coming back from North America, and they've learned like proper way of running lodges. And
correct.
And I always,
they're sacred.
I kind of like,
so
tone myself down, like, because I feel like, well, I always come with the utmost reverence and honor to those whose traditions that these belong to.
Yeah.
But again, just the same as those traditions, whether it's in a past life or whether it's tapping into the Akashic records or tapping into a deeper knowing of like, I know how to do this. I've been doing this for lifetimes.
It's a deeper knowing.
But I don't have those same, like I don't come from a lineage of it. So I never want to insult an Indigenous person of the way that I'm doing things, and sometimes I don't even do things because I don't want to insult,
and if it doesn't
a person or
resonate
something,
with you, you just
but the way that we were doing it,
walk
it's
away.
like the healing is still the essence. It's like, I think always if we can come back to the essence.
What's coming back
things.
to remembering, this is the whole point of having all things spiritual. A lot of us are awakening. A lot of us are remembering. We have this deep, deep knowing inside of us. And yeah, maybe it hasn't been created yet. It's because it's for you to step up and it's time for you to create it. Trust your inner nudge. There's this nudge inside of you, this little flame, that spark. Let the air come in and just light up that flame. And just remember, start creating it yourself. If there's something you don't like about a training or anything, and it's okay. Learn what you need to do and create your own. Mm-hmm. You're being called to be your own leader, to be your own master. Because ultimately, no one can heal you. You're the only healer. Mm-hmm. If you like going to Malaika's class or anyone, you have this amazing experience. She's holding space, but ultimately, you're the one that's surrendering and giving permission to allow for this beautiful higher frequency spirit to come through you and just heal you and cleanse you, because ultimately you are the healer.
Yeah, the times of the seeking the external guru are coming to an end, and we all need to find that inner guru, and that's why I see myself more as a coach in that way of a guide. It's like I just climbed Mount Agung, the highest mountain in Bali, and
the major high, guys. Major
the highest
hike.
one, 3,142 feet, right up.
No, meters.
Meters, yeah, meters. And there's a huge crater at the top. It's an active volcano, and and just that whole thing of like, ultimately, my feet have to take the steps and walk up. No one's going to carry me, or someone might hold my hand at one scary point, or
you're a superwoman,
give me a stick or something to lean on or whatever. But ultimately, you got to climb those mountains, and doing it with a group definitely is more fun.
More encouraging.
More encouraging. You have support. That's what we're here for. But ultimately, we all got to. We're born alone and we die alone, and we got to go through those journeys of life. And relationship is like, we can't cling to that person or want them to be different than they are, or whatever. Relationship is here to mirror to us all the places that are out of alignment or in alignment of ourselves. It's just a reflection of yourself.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah.
And so, even our love relationships, they're just there as we can't cling to that person or hope that they're going to give us happiness or give us anything. It's all really inside of us. It's all up to us. And we can thank, no matter what it is, the reflection is when it comes, and say, thank you for that reflection, and thank you for this reflection. And, oh, thanks for showing me where I'm out of alignment there. If I'm attracting that, because everything in the universe is all vibrating to vibrationalmatch.com, so it's,
I like that.
It's like if you're
like attracts like,
simple. So if you're in an abusive relationship and being the victim, like, oh, poor me, but it's like the person who's being abused needs to then take a moment to take a breath and step outside of it to see that I'm the one creating this, because this is what I'm saying I'm worth. This is what I'm saying that, I'm only worthy of this, And of course we can have love and compassion because they maybe had a terrible childhood that has led them to that place of thinking that this is all they're worth. But as soon as they shift their vibration, that person will just fall away out of your life because it no longer is a match anymore. You're no longer
It
a
repels.
match.
It just naturally
yeah,
repels.
you can't. It's like two radio stations, the frequencies, if you don't get them exactly in sync, there's like fuzz in the middle and it sounds terrible. And so it's the same with our relationships, and that no two people grow at the same time. So inevitably in relationship, sometimes one partner is doing their work and they're vibing up here, and the other partner is still down here and doesn't want to grow or has resistance to change and doesn't want to grow. And so it's like, and you're either like feel like you're dragging the other person up the hill, or they feel like they're pulling you down, or, you're not matching anymore. And so sometimes we have to let go. And the more we can learn to let go of everything more gracefully, and stop clinging to these constructs that have been instilled into our civilizations, into our cultures of like, this is the way it has to be.
Till death do us part doesn't make
we
much
suffer
sense.
dying in our relationships because we have a belief system around how it's supposed to be. And it's like, no, we're supposed to be evolving. We're supposed to be continually evolving.
And it's kind of hard, because especially when you have a partner, that's the most important thing. You should be evolving together. Mm-hmm. And in marriage, it's till death do us part, not till evolution tells us to go our own way. Mm-hmm. And because of that, people latch on and they stop their evolution because they're waiting on their partner, or they don't know what's going on with themselves. And that's where education has to come in. That's where programs, like the ones that you put together, are so important for people to understand where we stand.
Well, and, after living in an African village and living in Aboriginal communities and things, I really can see how children especially, and adults too, we thrive in community. And, so creating community is vitally, like, I feel like that's going to be the next step, is we're going to have a new way of being in community, and we're going to be forced to share our resources more and not build the palace for yourself. It's very lonely sitting in your own palace, and you've got this great palace with all your stuff, and you're still freaking miserable. Yes. And then you can be in like a hut with, some people, and because you're laughing and you're having interaction, you're as happy as, and you're like, wait a second, why, they told me that if I had this and I had that and I had this and I've got all these things and I'm still not happy. And it's like, because
self-love.
People make a place, make a place. And so we need to have that connection. And like in the African village, children are free to run around between all the different parents, like all the different mothers that they have in the village, and be children. They're allowed to be children. They're allowed to have that childhood and just be running around free and wild. And that was why I went to Africa with my two little children, because I wanted them to have that experience. And I couldn't have that in Australia because of, stranger danger and all the things that have been a byproduct of our isolation. And I feel like where we're heading in this awakening is like people are going to start coming back into creating community, and our relationships are going to look different. Our family units are going to start, they already are starting to diversify.
And it's also about trusting that the right people are going to take their roles that they came here for. So maybe some people are going to want to take care of the elders. Some people are going to want to work with children. Some people are going to be, become more doctors or healers. Just trusting that, because I think there's also this big weight where people think if we come back to villages and all of a sudden I have to play all these roles, and it's like, that's not necessarily true. And that's hard. I understand that, but it's just trusting that the right people are going to show up, because we all come here with different missions. Exactly. It's just allowing, just like our body knows exactly what to do, we all just follow our natural instincts.
Yep. What
people
turns
are
you
show
on,
up.
Follow what gives you the greatest turn on, follow your bliss, follow your ecstasy.
Because everything's already been created to perfection. We're the ones that are fighting it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So we just need to get with that programming of, of the trusting.
And it starts with trusting your body.
Yeah,
trusting the body, dance around, and then come into quiet, quiet space. And feel the bliss within. Within that chaos, once again, we go back to the eye of the tornado. Things are going to get a little bit more chaotic. Systems are
collapsing and being
systems are
rebuilt.
collapsing, new ones
Yeah.
are being rebuilt. So it is up to us to strengthen, our inner knowing, our inner selves, love ourselves, so we don't get pulled away. We have to build very, very, very deep roots right now, so we don't get thrown off by everything that is
every
happening
storm
and that
that
is
comes
coming.
through. Yeah, it's like, okay, here comes another storm. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we can go on forever
Yes,
and
yeah.
ever. I love talking to you always, Mama Bali. So we'll just have to close for now, and then definitely want to have you come back. And there's so many more to talk about. Cacao, definitely.
Yes, yeah. the
And
plants
many more. Thank you so much
well,
for
thank
having
you
me
so much.
here.
Thank you all so much for listening. And yeah, maybe we just finish with just taking a nice full deep breath in, like we did, just placing one hand on your heart, one hand on your womb space, and just taking a nice deep breath in and letting all of those words integrate into your own body. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to your own body. And thank you, dear Maria, for having me on your podcast.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll be putting down all of Malaika's information, her website, her Instagram, her Facebook, for you to follow and get ready to get to know your wild self. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.